I've said this many times in videos past, and I stand very firm on this stance. It's that it doesn't matter how rich you are, powerful, famous, successful, none of that stuff matters in the end because we're all human. And we can fall victim to a lot of things. Drug addiction, murder, suicide, just bad decision making all around. The murder of Damage Plan and Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell is just another one of those examples. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. So Darrell Abbott, Dimebag Darrell, however you know him as, doesn't matter. This guy was born August 20th of 1966 in Ennis, Texas, which Ennis, Texas is about 13 minutes down the road from where I currently reside. Now, they formed the band Pantera in 1981. Now, when Pantera formed, which is the band he's probably most famously known for, again, as a metal fan and a rock fan in general, I love everything Dimebag's ever done. But obviously Pantera's his bread and butter. That's what made him who he is. Now, in 1981 when they formed, they were a glam metal band, and it pretty much stood that way up until 1988. Now 1986 is when Phil Anselmo joined the band, and even then they were still in those glam metal roots. Now, power metal, the 1988 album that Pantera dropped, was still technically glam metal, but that was them trying to slowly transition out of that sound because, for one, they realized that just wasn't them. So not long after power metal was released in 1988, the guys, it was evident that there was a better sound that they could produce. For one, Phil's voice, it was just not fit for a glam metal band, and that's clearly evident today with all the projects he's ever done. And the rest of the guys too, the type of music that they would eventually play fit their style. Their playing styles, it just fit those guys. And any musician out there, you're going to find a style. You might be able to play multiple styles, but you're going to find one that fits you best, that you excel at. And for Dimebag Darrell, it had to be a more faster-paced guitar and hard guitar. Because on July 24th of 1990, after they signed their first major record label deal, Atco Records, they released their album Cowboys from Hell. Now, Cowboys from Hell is an absolute classic, a gem, no doubt. In 93, it was certified gold, and then eventually by 97, it was certified platinum. But this absolutely demonstrated these guys' talents to the fullest. I mean, you had bands like Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer who excelled at what they did, and they were the best at their style. So Pantera knew, hey, we can play better music than what we were doing, and we can be just as good as any of those other bands out there playing this style of metal. And they damn sure showed it on the album Cowboys from Hell. So after Pantera dropped Cowboys from Hell, they would end up dropping 4 more albums, good albums. Their next album, 92's Vulgar Display of Power, was an awesome album. That and Cowboys from Hell, probably their 2 most known or well-known as far as mainstream goes albums. They were great. They were certified albums, had awesome hits on them. But I gotta be honest, their next 3 albums were just as good. I mean, you had Far Beyond Driven in 94, another badass album. And then in 96, you had the great Southern Treadkill. Now, for me, personally, very underrated album. My favorite Pantera album, mostly because this was the only one I actually owned the full album. I mean, I didn't own any other Pantera albums. I knew a lot of their songs. I mean, they were a great band as far as I was concerned, but the great Southern Treadkill was the only album I ever owned. So I listened to it all the time, start to finish. Awesome album. And then their final album, Reinventing Steel, was a great album. Now, I gotta say, a big disappointment to Pantera fans and metal fans alike when after Reinventing Steel, the band disbanded. And it was just, well, it sucked. Hey, real quick, before we move on, can you please do me a huge favor? Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Those are 2 things you can do for me right now. They're absolutely free, cost you nothing, and that will help me and this channel grow, which is absolutely what I want to do. I love doing this. There's nothing better than being able to do something you love. And if you can turn it into a career, even better. So please, do those 2 things for me, and let's continue the video. Just like any band, before Pantera's breakup, there was issues, Let's take a moment to talk about the first thing. Obviously, Phil Anselmo had another project he was doing, the band Down. Awesome band. So he's doing them both at the same time and juggling them fairly well, I might add. But in his time with Pantera and Down, he was obviously developing a lot of back issues. And his way of coping with that was self-medicating. Lots of alcohol, lots of painkillers, and inevitably, he moved on to heroin. So he had his issues. That obviously created a rift with him and the Abbott brothers, Vinnie Paul and Dimebag. But, Down had already released an album, okay? They were getting ready to release a second album. Now, around September 11th of 2001, now we all know that date, Pantera was scheduled to do some shows in Ireland. Now, obviously, on that date, we had the terrorist attacks in New York City, so that canceled all those shows. which led Pantera to come back home to Texas, take a short hiatus. But obviously for Phil, there was no hiatus because he was busy getting ready to release Down's second album. He was also working on a new project called Superjoint Ritual, which was getting ready to release their debut album. Now, Superjoint Ritual was awesome. I seen those guys 3 times in high school. Love that band. Awesome band. Now, you got Phil Anselmo, who has plenty of things to do. He's fairly busy. That just left time to figure out, okay, Vinnie Paul, Dimebag, what's your next move? So the breakup of Pantera, it hit Dimebag very hard. I mean, and it's been said and publicized multiple times in many different ways that it hurt him. That was his heart and soul. I mean, they worked so hard to get to where they were, and just inevitably, because in Dimebag's head it was just stupid reasoning, the band did not continue after that, you know, and Phil was doing his thing, but he knew that he didn't want to continue the band without Phil. But on the second thought, he knew if he did continue it with a new lead singer, there was a very good chance it would turn into a legal battle over the rights to the band, and why would you want to drag something out like that? Some people don't care and they do it. That shows Dimebag's, you know, heart, his thought process, and the way he thinks as a person to not even go through it. So inevitably, him and his brother, they formed a new band. They formed Damage Plan. They brought in Patrick Lackman to be the vocalist, formerly of Halford. Then they brought in Bob Kakaha to be their bassist. And this was 2003. Elektra Records was the label that finally signed them, obviously off reputation. Why would you not want to sign the band that's going to be Dimebag and Vinny's new band? You know, it's something new, something fresh, and you know the guys have a reputation. And they released their debut album, Newfound Power. And they were about to go on a big tour in 2004 to promote it. So with Damage Plan out there promoting their album Newfound Power, they were going to arrive in Columbus, Ohio on December 8th of 2004. On that night, they were set to play the El Rosa Villa nightclub in Columbus. Now, December 8th is a very distinct date in rock and roll history, multiple times over. Now, for one, I just did a video a while back on Razzle. He is the late drummer for the band Hanoi Rocks, who was very well on the rise in the mid-'80s. Now, there's a night where he was partying with Vince Neil at his house, the lead singer of Motley Crue. Those two jumped in Vince's sports car after a night of partying to go do a beer run. Inevitably, the car that Vince was driving ended up going out of control, crashing, hurting many people, but inevitably Razzle was dead on impact and pronounced dead when, well, as soon as ambulance and first responders arrived. Very sad. December 8th of 1980 is another distinct date in rock and roll history. That was the night that Mark David Chapman pulled a gun out and shot rock and roll legend, Beatles legend, John Lennon in front of his New York City apartment. Now, December 8th of 2004 in Columbus, Ohio was about to be added to that list. So before Damage Plan would hit the stage that night at the El Rosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio, there was a man standing outside, a man named Nathan Gale. Now, this guy was standing outside for a while, and multiple people saw him and even was asked on different occasions by people what he was doing. Did he want to come inside? It was a very cold night. It's December in Ohio. And he didn't say much, didn't want to come in. Only thing he did ever say was he was waiting for Damage Plan. Now, Damage Plan would eventually hit the stage later that night. And as soon as they did, Nathan Gale had jumped a fence, went to the back of the nightclub, and was able to come in a back door. Now, Damage Plan started playing the first song on their set. And about halfway through the song, or even less than that, Dimebag was doing his thing, headbanging, jamming out. The Dimebag that we know, you can imagine exactly what he was doing, and only the people that were there would know. But as he started playing, Nathan Gale came up to the stage with a 9mm semi-automatic Beretta, and Dimebag, not even aware of what was going on around him, Nathan Gale pointed it at him and fired it multiple times. One of the many shots hitting him in the head, and Dimebag collapsed right there in that moment. So immediately after Dimebag Darrell hit the ground, Jeffrey Thompson, who was head of security for the band, attempted to tackle Gale and take the gun from him. During the struggle, he was shot and killed himself. Now, there was a fan in the building that night. He saw Thompson on the ground and Abbott and attempted to try to aid them in any way he could, which ultimately was his, well, the beginning of his demise, because trying to be the helpful hand, trying to be the good Samaritan, Nathan Gale also shot him as well, killed him. And there was also an employee at the nightclub that night after that. While Gale was trying to reload after he shot and killed the fan, again, the employee tried to take the gun away from him, and it was a failed attempt. Now, chaos was ensuing. Most people had already left the building, and eventually an officer came in through the back door and was able to take out Gale in the head with a 12-gauge shotgun, inevitably ending the chaos. But damage was done. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that moment on December 8th of 2004, Dimebag Darrell's life was taken, 3 other people's lives was taken, and multiple people were hurt that night and had to be rushed to the hospital. So Nathan Gale, who is said to have been former military, had some deep issues going on in his head. And as said by many people who knew him after the incident, that he was starting to get a little crazy, talking to himself, laughing at himself. And obviously, hindsight's 2020. Those who saw him outside the club would like to second guess not saying something or making a big deal about seeing a guy just standing there. But again, you don't know. And I mean, there's so many moments in life every day that we look at as not a big deal, something that we should brush off. And the moment something happens, we second guess ourselves and we look at what we could have done. There was nothing that could have been done because, again, how do you think or know something like that's going to happen? We lost Dimebag Darrell on December 8th of 2004. Now, obviously, December 8th is a very obvious cursed day in rock and roll. I mean, just like the age of 27. So, 2 of those things kind of go hand in hand, but definitely we lost a good one. And there's no doubt the outpouring of love and support after Dimebag's death was huge from many across the rock world. Not just the rock world, but the music industry. But definitely, no doubt it was a tragic day and forever will be known as the day we lost one of the greatest guitarists of all time. It's a debatable, topic, but no doubt Dimebag's style was amazing and he was one of the best to do it, especially in his genre. I mean, but, we lost a good one. You got to move on with life and just remember the good times that he gave us. I mean, no doubt the guy left us with a legacy that will live on forever. 50 years from now when the aliens come to Earth, we can give them a lot of things to show our pop culture in different decades. And Pantera in the 90s or Dimebag Darrell in general is something we could show them that will definitely amaze them, I guarantee it. But you know what? I enjoyed talking about this. Not saying it was a good story, but I enjoyed, putting Dimebag's legacy out there because it no doubt is a huge legacy. But again, I really appreciate you guys coming out and watching. And until next time, go out there and take care of yourself. I'm out.